What's up everyone, Thrall's Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic and I have a collection update for you. And this one's a big one. This one is a very intimidating stack, but I did manage to get through all this stuff while listening to a litany of other things too for reviews. Once again, I hit up some distros. I hit up Pulverised Records and got some releases, hit up Comatose Music and found a whole bunch of cool stuff in their distro as well, and they even threw in some freebies, which was really cool. And also hit up Night Shift merch because Everlasting Spew Records actually had some releases that were there, and I generally wait for their releases to get to American distros because the shipping's kind of steep from Italy, but I love that label and they have so many damn good releases. Also have some new releases in there as well we didn't get a chance to cover, but we're covering them now, and let's just get into this because again, this is a big stack. Cryptosis, Bionic Swarm. This is the debut album from this Dutch three-piece progressive technical thrash band. Very like late 80s, early 90s sound. This is some stellar songwriting. I absolutely loved this release, and yeah, we probably should have done a full-on review for it, but we had other ones we covered and said, but I am definitely singing its praises now for damn sure. This reminds me a lot of early Anacrusis in terms of that more technical thrash, very heavy. The guitar work, actually, I'll just say the musicianship across the board, all three of them are absolutely fucking killing it on here. Very well produced, maybe a little bit overproduced, but not so much so that it took me out of it. And I really especially liked Mindscape on here because they brought in some Blackened elements, and that was kind of something I wasn't expecting. Like progressive, generally you think more noodling, more close to, you know, like actual progressive metal bands and such. These guys stuck to the thrash throughout. It's just very technical, and the songwriting again is very dynamic. You have all sorts of stuff going on here. Killer release. I strongly recommend this for any thrash fan and any prog fan. If you're looking for technicality and again, like wild dynamic songwriting, it's here. And if you just want pummeling riffs and high energy thrash, my God, it's still here too. So yeah, definitely get this one, check it out, it's awesome. House by the Cemetery, Rise of the Rotten. This is the debut album from this Swedish death metal band, though I guess you can call it international. This features Roga Johansson, who you might know from 30 different other bands, the guys in Paganizer, and I'm not going through the list. There's too many. He's literally possibly in too many bands. But this is yet another project of his, and this is raw Swedish death metal. And it is ferocious. We're talking D-beats, HM2, all that early Entombed Dismember. I would even say going back as far as Nihilist in terms of how like gritty this sounds. Now I said international because the frontman is actually the frontman for Monstrosity right now, who I can't remember his name offhand, but I know he was awesome on the last Monstrosity album. And his vocals are super distorted and really just kind of creepy sounding, though I think they're a little bit out front, but overall, very effective. I love the reference on here to the movie House by the Cemetery, though I have it as Zombie Hell House because sometimes Fulci movies would have multiple titles. I can't remember the other one for the Beyond, but I know City of the Living Dead was also Gates of Hell. I think I saw it as Gates of Hell. Either way, I love the reference, and you know, horror movie stuff always gets me. Pretty much straightforward Swedish death metal. I like the campiness and the self-awareness. The song titles are pretty ridiculous. Eaten by the Horrid, A Morbid Scent, Into the Murky Depths. That sounds like that's where they record the album. It's good fun. If you love Swedish death metal, I strongly recommend checking this one out. It's just, again, a pure fun release, and you should definitely check it out. Harakiri from the Sky, Maere. This is the 5th album from this 2-man post-black metal band from Australia. This is 2 discs and over 84 minutes of music, and it's wonderful. I absolutely really love this. Now, I know this was probably recommended a couple times. This was one that we could have reviewed, but we just didn't get around to it. But I got it now, and yeah, I could see why you guys wanted us to review it, though this would have been a really long review because 84 minutes of music is nuts, but it's pretty much all good. I believe Joshua Coe, one of our followers and great guy, he recommended this one, and I slept on it until I saw it in the distro. I was like, well, I'm snagging it. I'm going to get this because I've heard only good things. This is really awesome, dynamic, sullen, somber songwriting. I love the overall sound of this. The vocals kind of have more of like a hardcore shout to them, though they can be really tuneful, and Man, this is absolutely loaded with hooks. I was really surprised that. I was expecting more atmosphere and distance. Now, granted, I did get that, but the fact that this is very hook-laden was the thing that really caught me. Like, there are giant melodic hooks all over this. It really reminded me a lot of Numenorian's last album. I love how layered this is, and that is definitely something I see as more like the post-metal side. They include like little piano bits in here that are particularly effective. And even the song Us Against December Skies, which was a particular favorite of mine, has a kind of folky touch to it. Now, the only thing I could really knock in this is sometimes I think the vocal production is really dry, especially when you compare it to the production on the rest of the album, which is very lush and full. That one, you know, it just kind of seemed like a dry shout most of the time, though it was very effective, and it definitely seems like it conveys a mood of like desperation and whatnot. But overall, God, this is an absolutely amazing release. I thought 84 minutes of this was going to be a little bit much, and I thought I would be kind of like droning out over it, but honestly I was hooked pretty much the entire time. And the last track being a placebo cover, I was really shocked by. It's really, really good, and they 100% just owned it. It's 100% them. Strongly recommend this. Jam the whole thing, take an hour and a half out of your day and just jam it. It's really, really good. I was completely lost in this. So yeah, anyone that recommended this and said we should have reviewed it and said we would like it, you were right. You got us. And this is awesome. I'm so glad I picked it up, and you should check it out. Noxis, Expanse of Hellish Black Mire. This is the debut EP from this Cleveland-based death metal act that features ex-bassist from Inoculation Dave Hirsch. Came out in 2020, and I had actually jammed a bit of this on YouTube, and I was curious to hear the rest of it. There is a bit of an issue here that I had with like ambience and atmosphere and samples and static noise, because they seem like they're kind of all over here, but musically, this is almost kind of akin to like early brutal death metal, so like early Suffocation and Spots, and then like Broken Hope, but you also kind of have that, you know, punky sort of death metal sound like Autopsy on here. The production is very raw in here. It definitely screams, you know, early 90s, late 80s sort of production on here. It's kind of murky, but, you know, still pretty good. And I gotta say, it's almost death grindish in spots. There was like some sections that kind of screamed Exhumed on here. And I gotta say, the breakdown on Guts Liquefy, which, great song title, was pretty damn solid. I really just kind of got into that one. Overall, it's a pretty solid EP. I don't like all the samples, which, yeah, I'm gonna come back to that because some of them seem just very loud, and I don't know, they don't necessarily fit all the time. It's just kind of weird soundscapes. But musically, pretty solid. If you love raw, old school, death metal, death grind, definitely recommend checking it out. It's good stuff. Rothadas. This is their self-titled debut demo. Came out in 2020. This is a two-piece Hungarian death doom band with members of Morbid Carnage and Cryptworm in it. And this is just 2 tracks of absolutely awesome death doom. I picked this one up on a whim, and yeah, it absolutely rules. I love the production on here. The vocals are particularly good. And this is the kind of death doom I really get into because it balances out both the slow, sludgy parts that scream doom metal, but also they have a lot of cool, like, up-tempo, like, real death metal stomps on here. There is no way in hell I'm going to be able to pronounce any of these song names, both of them. And I mean, well, the font makes it hard to read anyway, so yeah, we'll just skip that part. I'm just thankful this demo was self-titled, because if it was one of these tracks, I wouldn't be able to tell you what this was actually called. But I strongly recommend getting this. Both tracks absolutely will pass. It's actually a fairly long demo, considering both tracks are around 8 minutes long, so you get a fair amount of music in here, and the mix in here is fantastic. It's nice and raw sounding, but it's well mixed. Everything's really well separated. The guitar tone is just heavier than hell. Awesome, awesome demo. I strongly recommend picking this one up. Good stuff. Temisto. This is their self-titled debut from 2016. This came out on Pulverised Records as well. This was pretty much the end of the batch from Pulverized here. And this is a Swedish blackened death metal act, though I think this band leans a little bit more towards the black metal side. In fact, a lot of the stuff on here kind of reminded me of early Marduk, like Dark Endless era Marduk. Loads of atmosphere, it's very creepy and dark, and the guitar tone screams more black metal than anything else. The vocals are actually kind of like very dry and kind of ghastly too, so I guess that would also work with black metal, though there are some big death metal moments on here. There's also a bit of stuff in here that reminds me a lot of a band like Tribulation in terms of that, like, blackened death, maybe goth rock, that sort of odd hybrid. But it works. It really contributes to the atmosphere overall because it's supposed to be dark and foreboding, and they definitely achieve that. There's a lot of acoustic guitar in here too, which I was kind of shocked by. The songs Abyssal Depths, The Ritual, Succubus, Demiurge, and Seance all have big acoustic sections. I believe it's Abyssal Depths that closes with a big acoustic melody, and they're really good. They're very melodic, they're very tuneful, and they kind of keep that somber gothic tone throughout. This is my first exposure to this band. I'd never really heard them. I saw them in the store, and it was like, well, you know, might as well check out what else is in Pulverized Bandcamp, and jammed a bit and was like, yeah, this is pretty solid. And yeah, they sold me. So this is a pretty solid black and death metal act. Very, very melodic stuff on here. And again, if you like stuff like Tribulation or early Marduk, definitely check this out. It's pretty solid. Ass. Shitty Wizard versus Super Satan. This came out in 2015. This is the only full length from this Texas crossover thrash band. And I gotta say, I think Shitty Wizard lost this battle. Now, I heard about these guys years ago because I picked up their compilation of their first 2 EPs, I believe, and they actually do have re-recorded versions of most of those songs on here, which is kind of a letdown just because I wanted more original material, but oh well, it was still good. This is straight up crossover thrash. It's very goofy. There's not a lot of like serious subject matter, but you know, we don't really need it. As much as I hate the term pizza thrash, this is pretty accurate, namely because the second song is called Pizza Pizza. They said it twice, they're definitely serious about it. Fierce punk vibes in here. I mean, this is crossover, they're from Texas. Of course, I had to compare them immediately to DRI, and it's pretty damn close. It's just kind of fun, punky, riffy, just, you know, mosh pit stuff. It's goofy. And I mean, the song titles are absolutely hilarious. Smoke Drugs, Work Sucks / Fuck Shit Up, Manchild, I feel attacked on that one. Meth Mouth. I mean, yeah, it's pretty surface level in terms of you know what you're gonna get on this one. Now, an issue though I had was I actually like the demo versions of the songs better than the ones they re-record on here, especially Work Sucks, because that song was the one that completely sold me, and I like the more raw tone that's on the compilation or on the EPs. This sounds a little bit muddy, and it really kind of took away from it. Like, the guitars don't have that big thrashy crunch. They sound a little too muddy on here. Now, unfortunately, this band broke up in 2019, so this is, again, their lone full length. So, I don't know, maybe somewhere along the line we'll do a retro review of this very obscure, unknown band that I thought was pretty damn fun. But for now, I'll just say, if you love crossover thrash, definitely check this band out. This is still a lot of fun to jam. Birdflesh, Night of the Ultimate Mosh. This is the 2018 reissue on Everlasting Spew of their 2002 album, which was their second album. And this is hilariously awesome grindcore. I brought up Birdflesh in a collection update a while ago when I hit up Night Shift merch initially, and I got their album Extreme Graveyard Tornado, and holy shit, that album fucking rules. Well, guess what? This one does too. These guys have a new EP coming out soon, and I'm super excited about this because I love their style of grindcore. It's almost sort of a blend of crossover thrash and grindcore, and it is full tilt boogie, fast as hell, but hilarious. There are ridiculous samples in between the songs. Suicide Maniac actually features a clarinet solo. For whatever reason, I don't care, it was awesome. Dance on the Frozen Desert is a country grind song. It sounds odd, mainly because it is, but it works. Everything about this band just seems to work because it's hilarious, it's fun, it's not designed to be like the fiercely like political, in-your-face sort of grindcore. This is fun, ridiculous grindcore. I mean, if you've ever seen pictures of the band, I recommend looking at pictures of the band. They wear masks, there's props, there's occasionally muumuus they wear. Everything about this band is fun. Everyone contributes on vocals on here. This is only a 3-piece band. And I gotta say, there's lots of groove on this too. Like, you're gonna be banging your head listening to this, whether it's feverishly fast or just, you know, a nice, slow, bouncy groove, you're gonna get it. This is a great mosher of an album, and it very well should be. I look forward to seeing these guys at MDF next year because I have a feeling this live set will be maniacal as hell. Definitely check out Birdflesh, get this one, get Extreme Graveyard Tornado, check out the new EP that's coming out. I'm sure that's going to be ridiculous fun too. But yeah, this is becoming one of my favorite grindcore acts out there. They rule, and you should check them out. Centinex, Redeeming Filth. This is their 9th full length, came out in 2014, and this was kind of an interesting period for the band. They had broken up in 2006 and then reformed in 2014, but they came back with a different sound. They were kind of flirting more with like a blend of Swedish death metal, like in terms like Dismember and Entombed, and then more melodic death metal, so like Hypocrisy and At the Gates. And they'd actually crafted a pretty cool balance. I actually went over one of their albums during that era in a collection update before, and I really enjoyed it. This one, they kind of came back a bit differently. This is maybe just shifting towards straight up groovy old school death metal, but it's kind of missing the melodies. It's very meat and potatoes. It is all about riffs, grooves, and I gotta say, this is almost like the Swedish version of Obituary. And as much as that sounds appealing, I didn't get into this one as much as the previous albums. It's very sterile. That's kind of the issue on here. Like, none of the songs really jumped out. I didn't think any of them were bad. It's just none of them really kind of like grabbed me as much as the earlier stuff. The production on here is really solid. It's missing a lot of lead work, and again, that also kind of hurts the whole melody factor on here. It's very, again, sterile, and I don't know, that kind of hampered it. And I have the release that followed this one, and that kind of suffered from the same problem. But I mean, as far as like just old school death metal, if you like things cut and dry, meat and potatoes, like very meat and potatoes, it's pretty serviceable. Again, I don't think this is necessarily a bad album. It's just kind of dry for me, and it is kind of missing a lot of, I don't know, dynamics and just stuff to make the songs stand out. Still, I recommend checking this out though, for my own opinions. I may just be being a picky bitch again, but this one was definitely missing something for me. But again, check it out for my own opinions and listen to it and jam a lot of Centinex. Centinex's earlier stuff is absolutely killer. Check it out. Cerekloth, Pandemonium Prayers. This is the debut EP from this now defunct Danish death metal act. This came out in 2008 and has current and former members of Undergang in it, which I love that band. This is very thrashy death metal, and they definitely cement that by doing a cover of Deicide's Lunatic of God's Creation, and they nail it. I love the sound. It is high octane, and it's really different compared to their full length. Their full length that came out, which I believe I brought up in an underrated death metal albums forever ago. Hopefully I don't forget and bring it back up, but I do love that album. That album was a little bit more groove laden, so in between all the faster, thrashier moments on there, there was a lot of like bolt thrower groove all throughout it. This has some groovy pockets, but this is mostly super fast and just unrelenting in its aggression, and I dig that. Now, this does include a bonus track. The 4th track, Shattered Hourglass, is a demo version of a song that would pop up on their second EP, Hail of Syringes, which I also really liked. Overall, I just pretty much picked this one up because I wanted to round out what I was missing from this short-lived band, because I really enjoyed pretty much everything they released, which again was kind of minimal. And maybe there's something for a retro review sometime in terms of a band that not many people have heard of, but I think would be really fun to cover. But yeah, if you love thrashy death metal, definitely check out this EP. It's short, but it's pretty damn good. So yeah, check them out. And check out this band in general. They're really good. Denunciation, California Commando. Anyway, this is the second EP from this now defunct Sacramento-based death metal / death grind act. This would be their final release. They actually broke up the same year this was released on Maggot Records in 2020. This is straight up old school death metal with touches of grindcore in there. Lots of autopsy, obituary, death, that sort of thing. Very raw, gritty production. And it's not the California Commando I was thinking of, and I really got that with these samples they peppered in there. It's Falling Down. Like, a lot of this is themed around falling down. In fact, there are movie quotes. Of course, I recognize every moment because that movie is awesome. And it kind of works. It actually really works on this. It gives it a really cool unifying theme. It's not like samples from a litany of other movies, and it kind of just works with the whole flow of the album. I love a lot of the early death grind nods, especially the lower vocals. They definitely remind me of Ross Sewage in terms of that like deep burp on there. Pretty solid EP. I definitely need to get their first one. I believe that one was self-released, or it was released through a even smaller label than Maggot Stomp, so that one might be a little bit harder to find. But I definitely plan on looking out for it. It's short, it's sweet, and it's brutal, and you should definitely check it out. Execration, the acceptance of zero existence. This is the second full length from this Texas-based death metal / brutal death metal act. Came out in 2012, and I fucked up and ordered the wrong Execration. I thought this was the Norwegian band. I should have done some more research. It wasn't. But luckily, what I got was still pretty good. Now, this came out on Comatose Music, and it's a pretty decent brutal death metal album. Now, it's interesting that I think this is decidedly melodic for something that is labeled more as brutal death metal. There's lots of really melodic guitar work across this, and I was pretty relieved to not hear a lot of pig vocals on here, which that's kind of a thing for me. I just don't really get into that. But in terms of the vocals, there were some issues with some of the cadences feeling a little bit off. But this is very comparable to, you know, Suffocation and bands like Gorgasm, and maybe even a little bit of Cryptopsy worship in there. Now, it's interesting, after the 7th track, which is an interlude, which I believe is Further Through the Portal, everything kind of takes a hard shift to more melody. And the production here is really uneven, so I think some of this was possibly recorded in different sessions, maybe with some different settings. I don't know, like, it kind of came across as just uneven. And this band apparently had a lot of high turnover rate. There's only 2 members that are currently in this band, and there are a ton of ex-members. And I believe they all moved on to different projects. I didn't see a lot that were super notable, but overall this is a pretty decent album. And, you know, I screwed up, or the wrong album, but I still got something good, which is nice. It's techie, it's got a fair amount of melody, it's still brutal as hell, so I mean, if those all check off proverbial boxes for what you like in death metal, I'd say check this one out. Gaerea. This is their self-titled debut EP. Came out in 2016 on Everlasting Spew. And for those that don't know, this is that creepy black metal band from Portugal that wears the shrouds over their face. And they're amazing. I have both their full lengths. They're both amazing. This is also amazing. Now, the production here is a little bit different. It's a little bit less reverby, I guess you could say. It still does have a like very reverby sound, but not nearly as much as the 2 full lengths that came out afterwards. This is really solid, much like everything else they've put out. The vocals are a little bit different too, in terms of that being one of the things that I noticed that is less reverb drenched, but they still have that anguish, you know, kind of call into the void, and my God, it's just oppressive sounding. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I mean, I knew I probably would because I love their 2 full lengths. I can't imagine they, you know, got off to a bad start. The song Void of Numbness alone is a true gem. I dig this. I mean, I knew I probably would. This was a kind of a safe bet, but yeah, if you have not jammed Gaerea, just get all their shit. Get all of it. It's all good. And this is a damn good place to start. Solid EP. You should check it out. Puncture Wound. Brutal Butchery of Bargain Basement Bodies EP. Jesus, that is a mouthful. And if you think that's a mouthful, check out their full-length title, which I've gone over before, and so is Jammin' John, because that's how I heard of these guys. This came out in 2017, and I was pretty much greeted to them courtesy of Jammin' John when he did one of his early What's John Jammin' segments. And I instantly fell in love with their sound because this is old school death metal that is fiercely Floridian. Like, there's tons of Cannibal Corpse worship on here, monstrosity, deicide. It's absolutely awesome. Now, this is their debut EP, and it's a little bit different than the full length. I think the full length is definitely more settled on Cannibal Corpse and all that. This has a little bit of a touch of like brutal death metal, so like a little bit of like, you know, Dying Fetus in there for some extra added heft. Now, I think the full length is better, but this is still really good. You can definitely hear the improvement in songwriting from the course of this EP to their full length. The big issue though on here is there is a weird static thing in between every track, and it is super loud. And if I'm listening to this in the car, that is gonna annoy the hell out of me, which sucks because I would want to listen to this card because this sounds awesome. This is just straight up awesome death metal. I love that shit, but I don't know why that static thing is there. I don't know if that was like a mistaken tracking or that's like an issue with this pressing, or I don't know. I know it was kind of annoying and it does hamper it a bit, but I still recommend checking out this band. Get the full length, get this. They're both good. Yeah, the static shit is annoying, but it does not take away from the fact that these guys can write some killer death metal. So yeah, definitely check these guys out. Psychotomy Aphotik. This is the second album from this Italian death metal / thrash metal. I have questions about that one. Came out on Everlasting Spew in 2018. And the reason why I have questions is because I don't detect very much thrash in here. This is straight up death metal, at least in my mind. And it reminds me a lot of Immolation. So I liked it, like, immediately. They had the awesome Immolation angular riffs, the off-time drumming, wild song structure, the dense, oppressive atmosphere, all things I love, and solid production to boot. It sounds really good on here. I think maybe on their first release, maybe they were a little bit more thrash metal. There are some sections that are up-tempo and maybe like a little bit thrashy, but it's like kind of like Vader thrashy, still very much death metal. But overall, this is a flat-out death metal release, at least in my mind. I really love the dreary atmosphere on here, and there's a lot of like strange, distant riffing, especially on the song Ascent Through Malevolence. I think that one has like almost kind of an ulcerate-like vibe on it. The production on here, again, is perfect. Like, there's a great mix on here. Everything is well separated and it sounds dark and oppressive. Great use of layered guitar melodies, and man, if you love those like big, deep, dark, Morbid Angel tremolo riffs, they are all over here. Strongly recommend checking this one out. I definitely want to get their first one just to see if that one actually did have like more thrashy elements, but this is an absolutely solid album and I'm super glad I picked it up. So yeah, definitely check this one out. Reckless Manslaughter, Blast into Oblivion. This was their second full-length, came out in 2013 on Final Gate Records. And this one I had to get, well, because I liked their last album that came out, and that was actually one of the first bands that ever got a hold of us and thanked us for reviewing their album and actually shared it. And I saw this release in Comatose' distro, so I had to snag it. And this is quite a bit different than the one they put out more recently. That one came out on FDA Records, and both of them have like an old school death metal sound, like both kind of rooted in like groovy, heavy death metal, bolt thrower. I would definitely say a bit of Ace Fix in there too, but this one is a little bit faster. There's more blast beats on here, and there's even some kind of brutal death moments on here. Untermenschen Zitadelle, I don't know how to say that, but that's a track that definitely has some more brutal death moments in terms of like the breakdowns and even the vocals on it. I would even say like maybe a little bit of Floridian death metal. There's some Cannibal Corpse like chugs in there that I thought were interesting. Overall though, I like where they're at now versus this one. This is good. I just don't think they quite found their sound and they were kind of searching around. They really honed in on the more mid-tempo, like old school death metal, like the bolt thrower Ace Fix sound more on the next release. And this, you know, definitely saw like as a transitional album. Now I haven't heard the album that preceded this, but I am curious and I would still definitely check that one out. But yeah, check this one out. It's a pretty solid release. I strongly recommend their newest album. I thought that one was really good. But yeah, good stuff. Check it out. Scalpture Panzerdoktrine. This is their debut album, came out in 2017 on Final Gate Records as well. And well, if you've been watching our videos last year, their second album made my year-end list because this is fantastic war-themed Ace Fix bolt thrower worshipping death metal. My God, these guys apparently have been good since the start because this debut is absolutely amazing. Great riffs, great melodies, great atmosphere. They actually do pepper in the same sort of samples they had on their second album, which I like maybe just a little bit more, but holy shit, this is also really good. Elements of Death Doom, you have your D-beat chugs, there's tons of stomping grooves. The whole album just rolls over your fucking bones like a tank. It's awesome. I love this from start to finish. There really is not a bad song on this, and that's pretty much the same for their follow-up, which if you haven't jammed that one, it's Eisenzeit. Get that one too. Get them both. This is absolutely awesome stuff. I was so happy to find this because I've been looking for this one for a while, and everything was apparently from overseas. Well, Comatose had it. Thank you, Comatose, because this is an absolute banger. Definitely check this out, and check out their other album too. It's amazing. Suture, Carnivorous Urge to Kill. Now, this originally came out in 2002, though this is the 2013 re-recording of it. And this was thrown in by Comatose. This is one of the freebies, since you order a certain amount of CDs and they send you a free one just because you ordered so much. And that's really beneficial for me because I order a lot of CDs. Now, I didn't know very much about this band. I know that they are brutal death metal. They are from Louisiana. There are members of Excommunicated and Voracious Scourge in here. And this was a nice surprise. I'm more apprehensive about getting brutal death metal releases just because I don't be greeted to pig vocals the entire time. That is not the case here. These are solid, low death metal vocals, and Jesus Christ, this is a riff farm. There are tons of catchy riffs on here. This is old school suffocation levels of just brutality and hooks. Like, really know how to write some killer hooks in here. My only knock on this was the fact that the drums are very compressed, especially the bass drums. There's not a lot of punch to it, and that kind of drove me nuts. But everything else about this is solid. The vocals are great, the cadences are awesome. They did re-record a couple of songs from their earlier demo in here, and those sound absolutely amazing too. This is killer, and the fact that they threw it in was even more killer. So yeah, this was technically a freebie from them, but yeah, they threw in a great album. Definitely check this out if you love brutal death metal without pig vocals. Get it. It's awesome. You will bang your head, I guarantee it. Terror, Trapped in a World. This is the 8th album from these guys. Came out this year on War Records, and I'm a longtime Terror fan. I've been following these guys since I heard about them in early 2000s. I love old school hardcore, and these guys have been a staple in it, at least for me. It's old school. It is pretty much everything I love about hardcore. It has that old school sound because that is who they are. Big riffs, big breakdowns, punk energy. Scott Vogel still has just pure hostility in his voice, though it does crack a couple of times in here. But I love the just straightforward approach. And this has like kind of a live sound to it. There's samples of them like, you know, rustling around in the studio or something in between some of these tracks, and it kind of gives like a live feel or a jammed in the studio feel to it. This album is a bullet train of moshers. It's maybe a half an hour long. I don't even know if it got to that far, but it's absolutely awesome. Riff after riff, mosh pit after mosh pit. It's just great to just get like a series of gut punches, because that's what Terror does. They just keep punching you, and if you love old school hardcore, definitely get this. It's just flat out awesome. Check it out. Torture, The Limb Collector. This is the first demo from this brutal death metal band, and this is a fiercely international band. They have members from Spain, Russia, and France, so I imagine there was a lot of file sharing. This is a 2-track demo. This was the other freebie I got from Comatose, and this one's not as good. I don't necessarily hate it, but it's not really the style of brutal death metal that I like. A lot of pig squeals, and then the other vocals are kind of just low growls that are not particularly interesting. It's very stiff, and of course, me being a demo, the production is a little, you know, kind of raw. I mean, it's a 2-track demo. They're just trying to get out there, and, you know, it's okay for what it is. I'm just not that into it, but again, that's just my opinion. If you love brutal death metal, I would still say check this out. I just don't really have much to say about it because, again, it's just 2 tracks and it's very short. I think this is maybe 10 minutes. So, yeah. Check it out, though. Form your own opinions. Definitely be a link below with all the other stuff in here. So, yeah. Check it out. Valgrind, Blackest Horizon. This came out in 2018. This is this band's 2nd release. They are from Italy. They are old school death metal, and this album is absolutely awesome. This reminds me a lot of a band like Horrendous in terms of it's very old school. Like, it definitely plays a lot of stuff that is similar to like Pestilence and Death, but it is very technical in their songwriting, and Jesus, the lead work on here is absolutely awesome. The riff work alone is incredible. Third and last, that opening riff reminds me of Voivod, but Voivod done by a death metal band, and yeah, that sounds pretty damn cool in my book. I love the mix on here. It has a very 90s sound. It's very well separated. I think the guitars can sound a little bit thin, but the way everything is sort of leveled out, I like how prominent the bass is, so I can't really knock it. And the interplay between all the instruments is fantastic. There are awesome fills, lots of cool like off-time moments, great groovy breakdowns, fast thrashy sections. This whole album is flat out killer. I loved all the like later death moments mixed in with the earlier death moments. It's a lot of death stuff, and if it sounds like death in any era, I'll love it. The last 3 tracks are a 3-part epic too, which I thought was really cool. Last Angel, part 1, part 2, part 3. Check them all out. Check out this whole album. I picked up their newest one recently, and I believe they are on Memento Mori. This is on Everlasting Spew. And I liked it, but I like this one more. There is just some incredible songwriting on here that really caught my ear, and production was awesome, vocals are awesome. I love this. This was absolutely killer, and if you have not jammed this, oh my god, check it out. It's amazing. Xoth, Invasion of the Tentacube. This is their debut, came out in 2016. This is a Seattle-based technical death metal band slash blackened death metal band. At least they were on this. I believe I got their most recent offering in a Metalhead box, which was Interdimensional Invocations, and I loved it. I love the sci-fi theme, the old school technical death metal play, again, very along the lines of death and like gore guts. But this one actually has all the black metal moments that I really didn't think were present on the other one, and holy shit, these guys are awesome songwriters. Again, this is technical as hell, which generally isn't like my biggest wheelhouse. I do like technical play, but these guys are great songwriters, and melodies throughout. The black metal moments on here I think are really good, but it's the technical melodies that I think are fantastic. The guitar work on here is just amazing. The second track, Antediluvian Annihilation, is flat out epic, and that melody was instantly hooked in my brain. And I love, of course, the sci-fi Lovecraftian theme. It's, you know, kind of a blend of the two, which, I mean, honestly, Lovecraftian horror is kind of a blend of the two. But yeah, this is an absolutely killer release. I don't know if I like the second one more or not, but I know I like them both. And if you have not jammed these guys, oh my god, check them out. Killer stuff. Crypts of Despair, All Light is Swallowed. This is the newest album from this Lithuanian death metal band. I've been a big fan of these guys since their debut. I absolutely loved it. This one is a bit different. They have employed a little bit more modern death metal. I have to say, what I thought was really strange in here is the fact that this is more up-tempo than the last one. The last one, very cavernous, more mid-tempo, lots of incantation worship. This is less cavernous, but still just as heavy. There are more blast beats this time, and maybe a touch more blackened. I think that's about the only difference though, but I like this. I really like this a lot. They still have a lot of those giant Death Doom breaks that Incantation has. The balance between the two different kinds of vocals. You have these high kind of blackened shrieks or yells or ghastly calls versus these low, just guttural, nasty, low vocals that sound like John McEntee. I mean, there's a lot of incantation stuff on here. The production is a little bit different than the previous album. Again, less cavernous, but it's still very atmospheric. The album just has a nasty feel to it overall, and I like the songwriting. They definitely are showing up. They have more in their wheelhouse, and this is, again, a very different album than their first album. Though, if you like heavy, dark, foreboding death metal, you're gonna probably like both. I would definitely say this is a band to watch out for. I absolutely loved this release. Killer artwork, transcending obscurity, and their packaging is always top notch. But definitely check this out. Check out their previous album too. This band's awesome. I can't wait to hear more from them, and hopefully when tours resume, these guys find their way over here and I'll go buy a bunch of merch from them because I'll probably enjoy their live set too. Absolutely kick ass. Check these guys out. And finally we have Anger as Art, Ad Mortem Festinimus. This is their fourth album, came out in 2016 on Old School Metal Records. This is a band that I'm actually familiar with. I actually have their last album, I believe, Hubris Inc. I think that was the name of it. It might not be their last album, there might be more, but I do have an album by these guys. And this is kind of interesting because this was a gift from Miller. He actually got this from Jeff Duncan from Armored Saint when he went down to Arlington, and you know, did a lot of the cool guitar stuff and, you know, like checked out the Sight and Sounds, you got to run into Jeff Duncan and you got a copy of this. And when he showed me this, like, oh my God, I'm actually familiar with this band. This is straight up thrash metal. It features members of Evil Dead, which I definitely love that band. And it's very interesting. Like, in terms of like pegging this band's sound, it's really hard to peg like what all they're doing. There's stuff that sounds like Bay Area. There's a lot of stuff in here that sounds like very German thrash metal, especially Destruction. The vocals are super over the top. Like, it's just kind of hamming it up for the sake of thrash, which I like it, but sometimes it kind of detracts from the overall sound just a bit. There's some production issues too that I didn't care for. Namely, the lead guitar tone is very squawky, and I don't know if it's two guitarists on there, because occasionally it'll sound really clean and it'll have like just solid harmonies and shit. And then there's a lot in here where it just sounds like it's kind of a poorly mixed, really grainy tone. Now, I don't know if that was sort of the thing they wanted to go for and kind of make it sound more raw, but I don't know, like kind of a uniform sort of lead tone would have been nice, because the clean part stood out more to me. And when it came down to like the extras on here in terms of like atmosphere and such, it's all over the place. It's kind of goes from goofy to like, ooh, we're kind of scary and spooky. I think they just had like a whole bunch of different samples and they kind of wanted to like pepper them in there just to add a bit of extra stuff. Like the opening track, I mean, after the intro track, which is really odd. It's a lot of Latin chanting. Pretty sure if I played this loud enough, some furniture would start levitating in my house. But the actual first track, Pissing on Your Grave, ends with someone peeing, and it sounds like they're peeing outside. I don't know, I just thought it was weird. And then there's other songs where there's just, you know, like weird samples and stuff in there. It kind of takes away from the listen. It's been a while since I've jammed this band, and I haven't jammed Hubris Inc. in a while, but I may have to go back to it. But yeah, pretty decent stuff. Check it out, form your own opinions. I thought it was okay. You might really dig it. All right, that knocks out an exceedingly large pile of music that I have acquired, and I'm still looking at this like, dude, man, you might have a problem. Someone pretty famous told me I might have a problem, and I believe him, but I'm gonna keep going because I'm obsessed. But yeah, we're gonna throw out some new segments here. We have some more ideas about more subject matter to talk about. I definitely want to do more live streams in the future, and I don't know, just, you know, keep telling you about how awesome metal is and keep recommending a lot of cool bands, because that's what we do and that's what we love doing. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon too, so if you'd like to help us out there will be a link in the description below. And we also have a giveaway going on. Once we hit 6,000 subs, we have a 4 CD package we're going to give away to one of you lucky people. So if you have not commented on that video for the giveaway, it should be playing automatically on our channel when you go there, but I will leave a link to that as well, so you can go ahead and comment on there and get in on that giveaway, because there's some good stuff in it. So with that, I thank all of you, and we will catch you later.